So I'm Taliba, and it's great to see you all here today. So every week in this session, we're going to have a little music to soothe. Then we'll feature the main course, which is that section on education. And we'll feed the soul with some art or sports. And then we'll move our bodies. And today's main event is Miss Michelle Kinder. Michelle.
Hi, and I'm Ruth Bruss. And Michelle, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Everybody, just so you know that Michelle, she is a licensed professional counselor working especially with youth. She's also the former executive director at Momentous Institute in Dallas. So Michelle, welcome, and we're so glad to have you here today for our soul food.
Thank you, T and Ruth. Very glad to be here.
So Michelle, tell us about your work with youth. Give us a little bit of a sense of what you've been up to. What's helpful to understand? You know, we have a lot of kids that are going through stressful times now, and they're going to have stress when they come back. What's important?
Oh, gosh. I'm glad you brought the word stress into that, because I think we thought we knew and understood stress in 2019, and we have a wholly different understanding of it today. And my work with children and families and organizations and communities has focused on social emotional health, and said another way, learning how to manage our internal world so that the external world feels manageable. And one of the things that we've learned is that when you can help kids, but really any of us, have just a basic understanding of the biology of stress and the biology of our emotions, we all feel a greater sense of control in managing them. And one way we did that, and Momentous Institute continues to do that, is through the metaphor of a glitter ball. Because we had to figure out how to teach children as young as 3 the neurobiology of their strong emotions. And so we would use, I don't know if you can see this very well, but we would use glitter balls, little or big ones, and we would tell the kids that the glitter ball is like their brain, and that when they're under a tremendous amount of stress or they're having a big emotion, that their amygdala is in charge. They're having an amygdala hijack. And we talked to even the 3-year-olds in this way and all the way up. And we explained to them that when their amygdala is in charge, their prefrontal cortex can't come fully online. And that if they can develop strategies to notice when they're in that elevated state and then have ways to settle their glitter, then they would do much better in school and in life. And certainly we're seeing that right now. All of us are having to revamp our formula for mental health and for settling our glitter.
So Michelle, you're also one of the co-authors of Whole, What Teachers Need to Help Students Thrive. Very excited. And Kevin, you're also one of the co-authors. So we have you both here, which is great. In that book, Michelle, you talk about how important it is that we care for teachers so that they're really fully present with their students. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What do we mean by fully present with their students?
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. And so Rex Miller and Bill Latham are our other co-authors, and that book, Whole, really explores how we've underemphasized the connection between teacher well-being and student well-being. And the truth of the matter is, all of you know, we are co-regulating creatures. And so if we want children to develop the capacity to self-regulate, we have to give them experiences of co-regulation. And our nervous systems are contagious. So if the adults in the building are leaking and fraying and having a really hard time, we're going to see that same thing happen with the children and students in the building, regardless of excellent strategies or intentions. Who we are impacts the people around us more than what we know.
So I'm curious, where does self-compassion come into play there?
Yes, self-compassion plays a huge part in that, especially right now. I mean, these circumstances are so punishing. And if you add into the external state of the world an inflamed inner critic, it's just too much. And so a space where we do have control is in activating that muscle of self-compassion and noticing when the inner critic is in charge. And my favorite thinker on self-compassion is Kristen Neff, and she has some terrific resources out there and on her website and in her books. And the way she describes it is we have to develop the capacity to notice our own suffering, then feel moved by it. And that's important because sometimes we notice it, but we go right to punishing or shame. So instead, she encourages us to notice our own suffering, feel moved by it, and then extend warmth and care to ourselves in the same way we would to a friend. And she actually has 3 components to this that have really shown up in her research in self-compassion. The first is self-kindness versus self-judgment, which we talked about a little. The second one, and this is so apparent right now, is a sense of common humanity versus isolation. And then the last one is mindfulness versus over-identification. And we're really going to see that with our teachers the rest of this year into the summer and into the fall. If we aren't supporting them to hold the experiences of the students without being swallowed up by the experiences of the students, they're going to have a really hard time staying well and healthy and mentally and emotionally grounded themselves.
So Michelle, we have a number of administrators in the audience today. Any insights into what teachers will need from them as leaders?
Yes. It's all parallel process. And so a really nice way to think about it is you as administrators extending compassion, grace, empathy, spaces for the adults in the building to feel seen, heard, understood, felt. If you're creating that container for them, then they can create that same container for students and families. What's tricky is very often administrators are in a situation where they are feeling the intense pressure from the circumstances or from above. And so that puts them in a fear-based mindset. And so when we as administrators interact with teachers from a fear-based scarcity sort of tensed up mindset, and then we're frustrated when they can't show up for students from a posture of generosity of spirit and expansiveness and, very self-regulated with their glitter settled, we have to move past that being a mystery to us. We extend it to them. They extend it to kids and families. If that thread is broken, we're going to continue to get spotty capacity in terms of the teachers being able to create those safe containers for students.
So how do I know as an educator if I'm feeling too much, Michelle, and I need extra help? How do I know that?
If you're not feeling too much right now, I think you're probably in a coma. Like it's so much what's happening for teachers right now. It just so on the one hand, I think normalizing for teachers and administrators and students and families that a sense of overwhelm and the need to reinvent our relationship with our own mental health is a universal experience right now. There's nothing surprising, wrong, or broken with you if you are feeling those moments or even extended days or weeks of I'm going under here. That said, there are some markers that can be helpful to pay attention to. One is if you're noticing that your capacity to get your job done or to show up in your primary relationships in a healthy way is impaired, that's a real sign you might want some extra help. So the difference being, I'm really struggling, but I can still get my work done. I'm still parenting, all that stuff. That's one layer. If you're like, I cannot get out of bed, or I'm not making any deadlines or what have you, that's a real clue that you might need some extra support. Some other things to watch for are significant changes in eating, sleeping, your desire to do things you used to care about, and behavior or temperament. And those are things you can look out for in yourself, but also in your kids and loved ones, because very often when we can't put something in words, it comes out sideways through one of those avenues. And an additional marker is that if you see struggles in any of those areas that last longer than 2 weeks, that's a real sign that it might be helpful to get some extra support. And I think the biggest takeaway around this question is just, if we're going to err right now, let's err on the side of seeking support sooner than we need it. And support can look lots of different ways. It might be professional support, but it might be prioritizing things that you know bring you back to center. If that's time on Zoom or a phone with a certain friend, or a routine that feeds your soul, or whatever it is, that can be an aspect of it too. It doesn't have to be jumping right to involving a professional. I will, in just a minute, I'll pop into the chat though 4 hotlines that I have recently recalled and just made sure they were functioning as they say they're functioning. And I would encourage you to think about sharing it, especially administrators, with your networks, because what we know for sure is that statistically, people are struggling more than they were struggling 4 months ago. And so you have people on your team that are having mental health crises right now. You have people on your team that are dealing with domestic violence, addiction issues, parenting crisis. And so I'll put those in the chat, but the meta message being, even if a hotline isn't the thing someone's going to do, you sharing resources like that as a leader can be very impactful, because it can say to them, okay, maybe I'm not the only one feeling this way if my boss thinks it's important to share a resource.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, Marcella from New York asked a really interesting question. As we think about kids, she's saying, as educators, we value rigor. We value the idea of productive struggle. Do you think students will have kind of lower thresholds because of trauma? And if so, how do we make sure teachers don't necessarily misinterpret that as kind of a sign to maybe water down instruction? How do I respond to that? It's kind of a delicate balance in the classroom. What do you suggest to that teacher?
Such a good question, Marcella. And the kind of overarching principle to me right now is to stay in deep relationship to the degree you can with your students. And that will act as a compass for you on when to push and when to back off. One of the things that this crisis is doing is putting in even starker clarity the inequities in our country, and the cost of those inequities to everyone on a soul level, and for many people, including their livelihoods. So what you don't want to do is feed a situation where you're actually not measuring capacity, you're measuring privilege. So that's the tightrope. But if you're in deep relationship with your students, then I really do trust our teachers. They're so, generally speaking, so on point if they're given the space to make decisions that are grounded in their relationships with students.
That's a really profound concept. You're measuring privilege versus capacity. Andrea in Florida asked, more than kind of how do you know, how do we make it acceptable to, admit that we need help or seek support? If we think about, teachers or administrators, they may not necessarily feel comfortable. How do we give them permission to seek it out?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the things that could come from this time is a bit of a normalizing of the need to be in deep relationship with our own mental health recipe, and that as life happens, we have to tweak what's working for us and what isn't working for us. And then another really nice way to make it accessible is to model vulnerability yourself. This can really be a you go first kind of moment, and with appropriate boundaries, being able to say, "Hey, I'm struggling in this way, and this is what I'm finding helps me," can go a long way to sort of opening the door that people feel like, okay, this is a safe space. I'm allowed to struggle. There's a two-part story to that, though. I think if in our relationships with the people who report to us or our colleagues or our friends and family, if we can get much better at asking the questions from a posture of genuine curiosity, the how are you, how are your loved ones, how can I help you type questions that are offered not in a throwaway, and that push past people's sort of programmed response of I'm fine, all's good here. That's one piece of the puzzle, but this is also a time for us to introduce and engage with each other around self-advocacy. So as much as we want to be asking the how are you, how's your family questions, we want to be asking the what are you doing that's working that I can share with others? Because then you trigger in people not just a sense of I'm a puddle, but I'm a puddle who can do something about how I'm relating to my circumstances. There's what happens to us, and then there's the sense we make of it. The sense we make of it is related to our well-being. So any way that you can sort of begin to, in a really empathetic, grounded way, plant seeds that yes, they might be struggling, but what are they doing that's helping? And putting them not just in the role of consultee, where they're just getting something from you to help them, but also having really fluid boundaries around the consultant. So you're sometimes needing to be the consultee, help me figure this out, but that same person also needs to be put in the seat of consultant. What are you doing that's working that I can share with others in order to fuel that self-advocacy?
That's outstanding. I know you're going to go into the chat and put up the hotlines. If you have other questions for Michelle, we have her contact information there. Obviously, a whole very interesting book, if I do say so myself. So thank you so much. And thank you for helping to feed our minds, Michelle, today from Texas.
Such a pleasure. I'm going to stay and enjoy the rest of this time.
All right. Well, now from our minds, we're going to feed our soul a little and our minds. And I am so pleased to introduce to everyone to Genevieve Custer-Weeks, whom I've actually known. I didn't want to say this, but it's like 25 years, Genevieve. You hadn't yet gone to Ballet Chicago to study, I think, when we first met. She is the founder of the Tutu School and former artist with Oakland Ballet. So Genevieve, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit, if you would, about the Tutu School and how you approach dance and movement for kids and what that means.
Sure. So Tutu School is a collection of boutique ballet schools for very young children. So we start as young as 18 months when toddlers are taken with a caregiver, and then we go up to 8 years old. So we focus on that very narrow window, and that allows us to do a few things. It allows us to really keep every aspect of our program completely tailored to that age group. So historically, dance schools kind of always fell into one of two categories. They were either really about recitals and performances and competitions, or they were super strict. They were very disciplined training institutions. And what I sort of realized as I was coming to the end of my own professional career in performing was that what I believed in most about ballet was its transformative power, and the way that just being in a space with music and movement could provide expression for all of us, but I was especially thinking about children, and also find a way for them to really discover things about themselves, that it could be both of those things. And that even if I never had a career in performing ballet, just having had that experience of having had space in my life for music and movement and all that afforded me would have been transformative and really would have always been a foundational part of who I was. So with that in mind, I wanted to start a school that would be that for other children. And then if they wanted to study more seriously, at the age of 8 is about when that needs to start happening, we would hand them off with a nice technical foundation, but most importantly, a real love of the art form, and hopefully having learned and explored a lot about themselves and gained confidence in their bodies and standing in their own skin, and send them off to more serious study. But that knowing most kids probably wouldn't choose that path, that they would go on to explore other things, they would still have had that experience in those early years.
Awesome. I'm curious, how has the move to online classes changed your approach? Are you able to do the face-to-face, or are you doing things online now?
So we switched overnight to streaming. We definitely look forward to the day when we can go back to on-site classes, and because we're all over the country, there will be some regions where that will be possible sooner, earlier than in other areas. It, for a while, will certainly involve some social distancing and other protocols, but so we switched to streaming really quickly, and we chose streaming. We're working now on an on-demand component too, but we chose streaming because we still really wanted to have that interaction between the teachers and the kids, especially because the kids we work with are so young. We felt like that was important to be able to provide that level of engagement, and also just that in a moment like this, that we think continuity is important, consistency is important, and connectivity is important, and streaming seemed to be the best way to do that, even though it obviously presents some challenges. Almost all of our teachers are in shelter-in-place areas too, so they're streaming from their homes, which isn't always easy, but we're making it work.
So Genevieve, we've got an audience of educators, and we're just trying to navigate this crazy change to online teaching. Any insights?
Sure. So I think, one of the things I've loved is that we started when we launched this, and again, it was a very quick pivot. We did provide our teachers with a lot of tools and ways that we thought our current curriculum, our typical curriculum, could be adapted for online classes. And then it's been pretty magical just to see how they've all taken it and really let it evolve in really organic ways based on what they're discovering, a classroom looks like when it's happening in this unique way. So I think one of the logistical things we've learned is that families right now do need, and I can attest to this myself with my own family, they need a lot of flexibility. So from just a purely logistical standpoint, we've discovered that it's really important to really do whatever we can to meet them where they are. So with streaming, to still offer tons of options, to be very flexible about scheduling. And then, like I said, that we're kind of actually also realizing some families actually want a pre-recorded class or educational experience because they can't commit to even just a specific time, which seems sort of counterintuitive because we're all stuck at home. But I know, again, from experience, it's pretty tricky, it's navigating all of these different schedules and Zoom calls. But I think in terms of actual, classroom sort of tips and tools and what people are finding works for engagement, I think one of the most common threads has been, finding some sort of connection with the home environment that kids are learning in. It seems like that really actually helps ground them in the moment and really helps them engage in the class content more. So we had been asking our teachers, what's working, what are you finding, has been helpful, and that was really a thread we saw. We saw that, some of again, these kids are very young, some of the kids love bringing like a favorite stuffed animal or toy to class with them, that then either becomes their audience there in their living room, or that they get to share with their teacher. and they're really sort of relishing that chance to show their teacher, like, this is a part of my home you don't get to see. You know, here's this thing that I love that now I can share with you. And so rather than sort of just pretending that it's business as usual, actually finding some of those silver linings and chances for new engagement and new connection has been really special. Sometimes it's also meant, you know, roping a parent who normally would be in the waiting room into a rehearsal or a class. So one of our teachers the other day had 3 grown-ups doing a recital rehearsal with their kids because they all went and grabbed a parent from the other room to dance with them. Again, very, you know, special and unique and not something that would normally happen. We've had teachers do scavenger hunts where, you know, it might be based on some educational theme. Maybe it's shapes for our younger kids, and they have to go find a triangle in their house or a color. But again, something that sort of is really acknowledging the fact that this isn't normal and is actually using their home environment and bringing that into the experience.
You know, I love your family, and we want to make sure we get some of the questions that are in chat. But I had a picture up of your lovely husband and your kids and your homeschooling as well. Just being really real for a minute, what is it like and how have you guys managed? I mean, you are running a business. Your husband is a professional photographer, just opening up a studio, running his business, and you have 3 amazing high energy children. What is it like in your house and how do you make that work?
High energy is, yeah, the key phrase there. Well, I'd be lying if I said that it was, you know, going smoothly all the time. I definitely left the house to come here to this quiet spot while my husband was on another Zoom and like was hissing at my kids on the way out the door, be the best version of yourselves, and then like ran away. So I'm not exactly winning right now because they were fighting about their chores. It was a disaster. Anyway, but you know, so first of all, I've been very lucky that because my husband is a photographer, most of his work is stalled, which is not lucky, but means that he's been sort of able to manage the homeschooling piece of it. Schedules have helped us a lot, as much as everyone sort of resists them. Having that sort of consistency has helped. And I've learned, I was actually realizing yesterday that some of the things that I really put in place for the kids to help them during this time, I really neglected for myself. So like instituting all these routines and schedules for them that I know are so important for them, I was totally failing to do that for myself and really, you know, suffering. And we make sure, you know, we're religious about making sure that they get their recess and their activity and exercise in the backyard, or we'd all lose our minds. But I'm neglecting my own workouts, you know. And so really realizing that it's like I need to apply the same principles that we're being so careful to sort of preserve for them, to myself as well. But we're taking every, you know, one day at a time. My personal motto is always just do the next right thing. So I'm focusing on that more than ever now.
I think that's awesome, Genevieve. We do have a question. When Kevin had pulled up the PowerPoint slides, Kim saw some boys in the pictures. So she was wondering, do you have any insights into the benefit of ballet for our boys?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, ballet is one of our favorite sayings at Teacher School is ballet is for everybody. And so kids of all gender are always welcome at Teacher School and need, you know, they're very much needed in the ballet world. I think that, you know, ballet does for boys what it does for all children, which is that it can really help them organize their energy. I think that being able to have a space in which they can really balance out both expression and creativity with, you know, a foundation of some of that early technical discipline is amazing for all kids. But I think, you know, that historically it's been a trickier space for boys, and we're doing everything that we can to change that. I think you can kind of see behind me, we are a pretty pink and purple space, but we really, and we're unapologetically that way, but we've really, especially in recent years, tried to work hard to make sure that, you know, we understand that all of our students and our families understand that we don't believe that, first of all, that pink and purple are only for girls, but also we don't think that those are the only things that girls should value. That we're unapologetically pink and purple and sparkly, but we're also just as much about the bravery and courage and the intelligence and the ballet story characters that we highlight in our ballet storytime curriculum, and that we're just as much about the strength that we're building in our muscles, and that we don't assign, you know, colors in terms of the colors on the wall or genders in terms of the gender of our students to those things. We think that they're for everyone.
Awesome. We have some other questions. Do your students enter competitions?
They don't. So we're different than some schools that are pretty competition focused. I think there are a lot of schools of thought about competitions, but for us, we do have performance opportunities for our kids, but we really our most important focus is on creating a space for exploration and discovery. And we feel like focusing too much on competitions can get in the way of that, especially because the kids that we work with are so young. So I know there are some families that have really enjoyed being a part of competition schools, and I think that's fantastic, but we feel like there are schools that are doing that and are doing it well. So we're gonna keep protecting the space that we're making for kids and really just focus on that.
Is there any kind of screening for students to participate in the tutu school, or do you come one, come all?
Come one, come all. That's the other wonderful thing about being able to focus so narrowly on this age range is that it is truly for everybody. I mean, having grown up in the ballet world, you do at a pretty young age get to a point where different training institutions start, really do start screening for what they think are ultimate professional abilities. And I love that because our focus is not on that. Our focus is on bringing the benefits of ballet to all children. It's for everybody. And we see the potential both for, the development of all of these kids as dancers, but also the potential for what ballet can bring to them in everybody.
Genevieve, I love that you end your sessions at the tutu school with the phrase, "Thank you for the music, thank you for the dancing, and thank you for the magic." And thank you for joining us. That was just fantastic. So the tutu school information is in the chat. Next week, we have Scott Evans, who is, he leads the music programs in one of the largest school districts in the United States in Orange County. And they just did a partnership with a ballet company. So it's going to be really interesting to hear what he says. So we have a lot of ballet happening. So Genevieve, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Is Ricardo in the room?
Yes, he is.
All righty.
I am here.
Okay. So Genevieve, thanks so very much. And as we all know, ballet is about movement. And now that we've fed our minds and our souls, now let's move our bodies. So today, you all meet Ricardo Publa, and he's going to have us do a little movement for this afternoon.
Yes, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? You can just give me a thumbs up. It's great. All right. Thank you so much for having me on here. Okay. Oh, Michael, you were not playing when you said the producer. I see that. All right, perfect. What I would like for everybody to do is to just stand up. Just stand up behind your chair. I know I see everyone is sitting. Just please stand up behind your chair. We're going to do something very, very simple. Nothing very complicated. Actually, I'm going to I'm going to piggyback off Michelle with the centering comment. It was very, very appropriate, actually. When she was mentioning the centering, so this is actually what we're going to do a little bit of, but this is going to be a centering based off of your physical and emotional state, right? So you're going to go from doing something physical to just help you release some stress and help you feel better. And most of you are probably already done this move. This is very simple. We're going to do a cat and a camel on the chair. It's very, very simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our hands on our chair, the back of the chair. Okay, place your hands on the back of the chair. Good. Just need some support. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath, inhale, and we're going to dip our chest going down, and we're going to stick our booty way back. And we're just going to keep reaching, keep reaching, keep reaching, keep reaching. And you want to get your chest like under the chair, under the back of the chair. So you don't even see me anymore, right? Or maybe just my hand. So you go from there. And from right here, what we're going to do is we're going to push it. We're going to exhale. We're going to push all our back all the way out. Top of the back, round it all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. And you reach. And you should feel this all through these muscles here. Okay, as you expand and reach, all these muscles here, you should feel that. And then in your back. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. So we're going to pull all the way down. We're going to inhale, big deep breath, inhale. And then we're gonna push out, exhale, all the way out through the shoulders, all the way up, all the way, 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 reach. And then we're gonna do it again. We're gonna go back down. We're gonna inhale, going down, way down. Keep reaching. Every single time you want to reach a little further than you did before. And then we're gonna push out, exhale, all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. Let's get two more in there, two more. Okay, let's go back down, reaching all the way down. And we're gonna exhale right here. Exhale, push. You make sure you get that deep breath. A deep breath will actually help you relax. Last one right here, follow me. We're going back down. Just dug all the way. You're basically trying to get your chest under your arms. And then we're gonna push all the way out. And full extension. And if you were sitting all day, just this little 5 little things make you feel a lot better. Just a little bit looser, more relaxed, more ready to go on for the rest of your day. I know you guys are probably off for work after this, correct? Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Okay, and I believe that concludes. If you have any questions, let me know. Speaking of that, of movement, if we do a core Pilates with this group here, we do a core Pilates class every Saturday, Wednesdays, and Mondays. So if you'd like to join, reach Miss Daniel Taliba. You can help them with that. Okay? So thank you all for having me. I enjoyed my little moment in the sun. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I guess I will see you all at a later time.
All right. Thank you, Ricardo.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'll see you guys later.
I'm hurting from yesterday. So.
But Saturday, we'll bring right back.
I know.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see you guys later. Everybody enjoy.
We were talking about doing soul food. T thought, we really need to make sure that we are honoring that you got to move, you got to get it going. So in the email that we'll send afterwards, Ricardo actually has some office moves, and we're also recording this. And our goal is every week just to have a little bit of an idea of something that we can do. So we hope that you've enjoyed our first episode of Soul Food. Again, something for our mind, something for our body, something to rejuvenate our spirit. And next week, we have a special guest, Villanova head coach Ferrante, is going to be talking about leadership on and off the field. And then we have Scott Evans, as I said, Senior Director of Visual and Performing Arts. We have a different theme every week. It is getting interesting. Coming in June, we have the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons coming on. So I hope you'll watch for us. And spread the word with your colleagues or with your friends. Obviously, it's not just for educators and administrators. So to play us out, I know Victor, I think, was switching over to his laptop. I want to honor that our artists, our musicians, as Genevieve said, her husband, they don't have a lot of work right now. So I do a lot of Venmoing with my friend. So he has a virtual tip jar with the Venmo. And this is a really special, sweet treat because each week Victor is going to be previewing a song from a new show called Mad Hatter the Musical. And he helped to write some of the songs that actually premiered in London. And there's going to be, provided we still get to be together in person, there'll be some showings come in New York. So Victor, you're going to play us out, and everybody else, we're going to see you next week. So what do you got for us, Victor?
So last month, actually, in May, we decided that we would release a song from Mad Hatter every Wednesday. So we, at this point, we have 4 songs released from the show. Like you said, it was premiered in London. We had 2 performances in the West End last summer. I was in it, actually. I got to play one of the parts in the show. But I'll talk to you about it in the next couple of weeks. But for today, I actually wanted to do this one song. This is one of the songs that we released last month, and it's called Step Out. And I think it's such a pretty, beautiful song, and I think it will resonate quite a bit with the times right now. So I hope you enjoy it, and as Kevin said, I'm doing actually shows every Wednesday as well. on Facebook, just putting out my Venmo and my Cash App and all those things, and just trying to keep it going and trying to spread some music. So let's do this. Step out of the bitter world. I can't leave things as they be. Step out of the bitter world and stand up next to me. Time is not on our side. Follow me and I could be your guide to step out of the bitter world. Step out of the bitter world. I can leave things as they be. Step out of the bitter world and stand up next to me. Our land is here for you. It'll give you the courage to step out of the bitter world. Step out, step out, step out, step out. Step out of the bitter world, and someday we'll have the sun. Step out of the bitter world, and we'll be free to go on. Our work has only begun. Join us and we will be one. Thank you very much, guys. And yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Love that.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And next week we'll share more music, and every week is gonna have a different kind of feel. Today I was just like, okay, I'm kind of new to this, so let's try to get acquainted with the people. So next week is gonna be a little different. Now that we know each other, now that we're comfortable with each other.
Our family, yeah.
Yes, there you go. But thank you once again for having me. I had a wonderful time. And all the while I was listening to all of you, and really it's just so inspiring to see what everyone's doing, and what all of us are doing, trying to stay connected and try to, stay as a community. It's beautiful.
Thanks all. I hope you all have a little food for the mind, soothing for the soul, and a little appetizer for the body. See you all next week.